One of the biggest stories here is one that's been hiding in plain view for a long time, but it's unprecedented this time. MSNBC headline, top linked on drudgereport.com, Sanders camp suspicious of Microsoft's influence in Iowa caucuses. Kurt Nemo has a more detailed article at Infowars.com, in my view, that actually goes into the background of this, because Microsoft is at the top of the pyramid of shadow government. I'm going to give you the rest of the story here in a moment. But Sanders camp suspicious of Microsoft influence in Iowa caucuses. Here's the Infowars headline. Sanders campaign worried Microsoft app will misrepresent Iowa caucus vote. Yeah, we'll hack the vote is the real headline. In fact, I would tweet that out in my name, folks, crew in there. It's hard to tweet while you talk on air, so they just take the transcripts constantly. I would shoot this out and just basically say Sanders is worried about Microsoft hacking Iowa caucuses. I mean, that's what it is. When you cheat something, it's a hack. People think it's always breaking in. No, it's also engaging in a fraud using computers, period. And Microsoft is probably one of the most evil companies in history after IBM. I'm going to talk about that in a moment. And absolutely, that's why you see such weird results in Iowa, famously, is there's been so much black box manipulation. They've caught hackers getting in. I mean, they caught Diebold. It's admitted that JFK stole Chicago, Illinois to win the presidency in 1961. It's known that LBJ stole his first congressional seat in Texas. That was the stuff in the ballot box. It's well established there's a lot of hanky-panky. But it's still kind of geographical, because if there's a huge landslide for a candidate, I've had many of the top experts on, it's hard for them to still steal it. But if it's close, they can steal them and not get caught with the manipulation. So we'll break that down in a moment. Sanders campaign worried Microsoft app will misrepresent Iowa caucus votes. You got an app for both parties now run, quote, for the first time, that'll tell everybody what's happening. And so Sanders is smart with his little commie friends. Because let me tell you, we've seen polls out there where he gets double or triple what Hillary does. I mean, I don't believe this stuff that he's neck and neck with her. He's way ahead of her. I mean, I know who the constituents are, a bunch of something-for-nothing people who like her because they thought she was a communist. Now they know she's filthy rich. Sanders has been attacking all that, that she's an insider, so she's losing her support. Of course, if you give a corporation like Microsoft the control over something, they're going to do it. They've gotten away with everything. Microsoft is a spinoff to get around antitrust laws of IBM. IBM literally created Hitler, ran the machines with the numbers on people, the holograph machines. Just Google IBM and the Holocaust. And Thomas Watson, it's the Watson computer. Well, the Watson's the big deep blue. It's the Thomas computer, named his first name, that decides who to kill at the VA and not give treatment to. It's the Thomas computer that's going to decide now if you're on Social Security whether or not your guns should be taken. I mean, they just run basically everything. And Microsoft is their front company, and involved in eugenics and secret vaccine programs and vaccines in food and covert operations and weather control. Just everything I say, Google it. It's the foremost black op cutout front group. And he's absolutely right that's going on. On Wednesday, the Bernie Sanders campaign said it was concerned software giant Microsoft will tamper with caucus's election vote tallies in Iowa next week. And that's why they're setting up their own parallel system to track it. Absolutely. And you always catch these groups cheating, but it's like, well, this tally didn't match up. And by then, the mainstream media has moved on to the next lie. Well, now there's alternative media that's bigger than mainstream media in many cases, so they can't just do this in the dark. Microsoft is partnered with both establishment parties and will provide a mobile embedded cloud-based platform that will facilitate accuracy and efficiency of the reporting process, according to their website. You have to ask yourself why they'd want to give something like that away for free, said Pete D'Alessandro, who is heading up the Sanders campaign in Iowa. Both the Sanders and Clinton campaigns have built reporting systems based on Microsoft app, in addition to taking money in the past from Citigroup, Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, and George Soros, and it just goes on to Clinton's pedigree. Absolutely. Do the Clintons rig elections? Do big old brown bears go poo-poo in the woods? Huh? You know, I'm really glad that Drudge Report is linked to this MSNBC article, because a lot of other media isn't really covering it. And I don't normally even go with MSNBC, but they love their little commie Sanders. And it is bold for Sanders to call out the elephant in the room, because election fraud is really a big problem. And if you don't think Hillary isn't going to use that in Iowa, and if folks don't know that Microsoft is as crooked as a dog's back leg, then you need to get educated. I'm talking to new listeners out there. Here's the MSNBC article. Sanders camp suspicious of Microsoft's influence in Iowa caucuses. And more we see the election fraud. I personally, many years ago when Pat Buchanan was running, went down and volunteered at the election center in the old convention center they tore down in Austin. And I was there stacking up the ballots in the so-called, Democrat town of Austin, but it was the Republican primary. And I mean, like 60, 70% were for Pat Buchanan. There were Pat Buchanan signs everywhere. He was kind of the proto Donald Trump dark horse that folks wanted. They didn't want, who was it then, Bob Dole? And it came out on the news that night, oh, we've crossed over 60% of the tallies, and it's clear Pat Buchanan, I think it was like 9% or something, and then the establishment candidate was the vast majority. And I walked around and talked to people in there, and I said, are your stacks the same as mine for different precincts? Almost all Pat Buchanan. They go, yeah, it's Pat Buchanan's winning. Then we take the stacks of Scantrons and stick them in a big machine, and they have little data tapes. And then somewhere in the data tapes, well, everybody knows what happens. And then I even went and challenged the election results. The state board heard it. It was on the county commissioner's TV, you name it, on cable. And I got up and yelled at them, and after they came back a week later and said, the state board looked at it and agrees there are anomalies and problems, but we are certifying this. They certify it. So I yelled at them and said, this is all tyranny. So then they had the SWAT team that was in the building next door the next week when I was there come and sit on both sides of me. I want to find that footage. It's pretty funny. Anyways, and then they're like, Alex, there's no election fraud. I go, oh, yeah? So they go, here, come on over to our office. So I go over there. There's like Oklahoma Cities and inside job videos on the wall and all the rest of it. And I went back and met with the head of the SWAT team named Lieutenant Beck, and he goes, Alex, there's no Delta Force coming. There's no black helicopters. I was a Marine in Vietnam, and I'm, on the intelligence group of the state as well. And I'm telling you, and then about, like I said, 6 months later, he calls me and goes, I gave him my number. He goes, come on by the office. I want to show you something. He goes, Delta Force was here, and they did what you said they'd do. I said, what was that? And he goes, what you said they do, which is try to buy him off. He goes, what's going on? And then they heard about that and fired him. They used some political correctness thing to get rid of him. Last time I heard he was working at the airport. But that's how America operates. They just go, there are no black helicopters. There's no election fraud. Obama's not a radical Muslim. There's no ISIS coming into the country. They talk to you like you're 5 years old, but it doesn't work like that anymore. And so it's going to come down to people that know they're on the side of bad working for the system, and those of us that know that the system's been taken over by very, 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 very criminal interests. But the big news is Trump is helping put the final nails in the coffin of the dinosaur rotting media, helping shovel them into their graves. As he says, I'm not coming to your stage debate. I'm doing my own thing. We're all dominate, and I'm going to have more viewers than you do, and then I'm going to give the money to the veterans group, the Wounded Warriors. We salute Donald Trump. Another stroke of pure leadership, outsmarting the Bilderberg trash. In the past decade, we have witnessed unparalleled scientific discoveries in the area of health. But no one has put together a formula that focuses directly on brain health, nerve growth factors, and optimizing your cellular energy at the same time. DNA Force is one of the most expensive formulas to produce. Some of the ingredients in DNA Force are $12,000 a kilogram. We are using the coveted, patented, only American source of PQQ, CoQ10, and more. You want the best that's out there at the lowest price anywhere? Well, we're bringing you a total win-win. The ultimate value, cutting-edge, trailblazing game changer that also supports the InfoWar. We have produced a limited run of DNA Force, and it will take up to 12 weeks to produce more once we sell out. Secure your DNA Force today at InfoWarsLife.com or call toll-free 888-253-3139. DNA Force from InfoWars Life.